Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting for Thursday, November 21st. The mayor gives his regrets today as he's still recovering from his medical procedure and might join us online a little later, but unable to join us right now, so I'll be filling in tonight. I'd like to acknowledge that we are holding this meeting on the territorial lands of the Kalama Nation, who have stewarded this land for thousands of years. We will start with some announcements, as we typically do for council meetings, and with the season the way it is, we have a lot of things that we could share as announcements, so I'll look to council. Start on the left-hand side if Councillor Palm wants to start us off with anything, and
Not the line.
pass it down. All right. Mr. Elliott.
So I don't have too much, but I do want community to be aware that the curling club is having their first parallel bond spiel coming up the first weekend of December. And as I understand it, we could use at least a few more ladies teams signing up, and you just do that by running down to the curling rink and putting your name on the list for if you got yourself a team. And parallel spiel is where we have men's and ladies bond spiels happening at the same time. And it's a really good time. So thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Dowd, anything?
I'm going to announce the Santa Claus Parade that's happening on December 1st at 3 p.m. downtown. And I've been trying to grow a longer beard to participate in that parade. So not too long now before the festivities happen. So get your floats ready.
Thank you. Councillor Southcott. Councillor Isaacson.
I mean, I got a lot, so I'll try to keep it quick. Yesterday was a trans day of remembrance, but because the weather was really choppy, they have postponed their event until tomorrow from 5 to 7. It is a private event, but if you reach out to Trans qathet, they can give you details as to where that is. At the library on Saturday at 2 p.m., there is a snail mail, make your own cards event. It's open for all ages, so if you want to make cards that you can hand out for the holidays, head to the library 2 p.m. Saturday. CGMP, which is our local community radio station, is having a rock and bowl fundraiser Saturday night, 7 p.m. at Strikers, and it'll be lots of fun with local DJs, dance party, bowling, good old times all around. On Monday, there's a solidarity event for the postal workers who are on strike, and so that's happening, I believe, at it's happening in Cranberry. I forget actually if it's at
30.
It starts at 5:30 with chili, some remarks, and a film about some historical natures of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. But I forget if it's at the Senior Centre or at Cran Hall, but it's in Cranberry. At the hall? Cran Hall. Okay. If you have children in your life, ages 12 to 24, the Foundry is having a design open house. If you, the Foundry is a service that's coming to town that will offer integrated health services of all types to youth in our community. And it's happening at the new Youth and Family Services building in Townside on Ash Street, the old Mill Union building. And that's happening at on Thursday the 28th at 5 p.m. Lots of holiday markets happening around, but I wanted to mention not so much a holiday market, but support your small businesses. There's a Jingle Hop. Shops will be open until 7 p.m. Friday the 29th. There's a number of shops who have signed up to do so. That's being put on by the Coastal Women in Business. And Energy Democracy for BC has their AGM on Monday the 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Senior Centre. And then they're finally on Wednesday the 4th. There's a webinar to explain the current situation with residential school denialism. It's being put on by the Lasqueti Island Community Association Reconciliation Committee. It's a webinar, so everyone's welcome to join online. And so if you look up Understanding Residential School Denialism on Facebook, you should find that event and a link on where to register. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Isaacson. Councillor Elliott, you forgot something.
Thank you. So I did forget to mention that the Powell River Therapeutic Riding Organization is having their open house on Saturday, November 30th, up at the fairgrounds in their therapeutic riding house, and they have silent auction and pictures with their horses for Christmas, if that's what you're into. And it's one of their annual fundraisers, so they would really love for people to show up to that. And they are doing a new thing this year over the Christmas break. They're calling it the winter break camps. So you can sign kids up that are ages 10 and up for children. And they are taking place on December 30 and 31. And so if you have kids that are interested in going into the horse winter break camp, they're just trying that as a new thing this year. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. And I will fill in with a few other things. Basically, the short end of it is there's no reason to be bored this time of the year. As Councillor Isaacson mentioned, we have a few craft sales going on starting off tomorrow. There's actually 3 this weekend. Starting with the Timberlane art sale going on tomorrow, all weekend up at Timberlane. The Cozy Creations craft sale going on Saturday, Sunday at TC Hotel. And the Assumption Bazaar, the Assumption School Bazaar happening on Saturday as well. So no shortage of markets. And the next Saturday, the 30th, is the winter and fall market held by the United Church. Our Kings are also in town both this weekend and next weekend. And if you got little ones under 12, take them to the game tomorrow. The kids are free tomorrow when accompanied by an adult, but there's games Friday, Saturday this weekend, and Saturday, Sunday the following weekend. But if you're into more musical things, Evergreen Theater's hosting the Rocky Mountain Christmas High, the hits of John Denver, for those that are more into the musical side. Or on December 1st, you can see the Qathet concert band prior to the Santa Claus parade. So you can go get your concert band fix in at 2 p.m. Admission is by donation, and then head over down to the parade. And finally, on November 30th, again, if you got little ones, go to the complex. They have a sea snake swim, which I'm sure would be fun for those that are enjoying jumping on snakes in waters. So moving on, go to adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Isaacson, second by Councillor Southcott. Do I have any adjustments, amendments, anything else? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Go to the adoption of the minutes. Anyone?
I'll move adoption of the special minutes of the special council meeting held November 4th, 2024, minutes of the regular council meeting held November 7th, 2024, and the minutes of the special council meeting held November 5th, 2024.
Thank you. And before I get Councillor Isaacson, that was November 14th, Councillor Isaacson meant, not 14th, November 4th. Yep. And then seconded by Councillor Elliott. Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. We've got no delegations or correspondence today, so we're going to jump right into 7.1, the city property policy. CAO.
Good evening, Council. So this is following your direction to come back to you with a policy for how we manage our city properties, moving away from the bylaw approach, giving council more flexibility to work with our different potential lessees. I can answer any questions if you have them. Ms. Matthews, unfortunately, is not with us currently today, but I can do my best to assist. Thank you.
Council, if there's any questions? Councillor Isaacson.
I move that council adopt city property policy 271.
Second by Councillor Elliott. Any other comments, questions, debate? Councillor Elliott.
So currently the policy talks about market rates and those kinds of things, which is great. What I don't notice in the policy is maybe procedures or anything that we are when we are looking at these things, what procedures are followed. For example, if somebody wanted to make an offer to the city, there's not really anything in the policy that helps us figure out what the right way for them to do that would be, or am I reading it incorrectly?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, are you speaking about purchasing property versus making an offer to negotiate what they pay for rent, because this is specifically around leases. And so it provides a process specific to leases. Purchases of city property would be something separate. So this is around leases and ways for staff and council to come up with leases that work with market rates and are in keeping with the best practices that we see at other municipalities. We found out that we were pretty much the only person using a bylaw, which was not very flexible and adaptable. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Isaacson.
Just to clarify, through the chair, there's not a full process, but it does talk about internal appraisals and what sources would be relied upon in deciding what a fair market value would be.
Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is unanimous. Moving on to 8.1. We have two reports from planning, so CAO.
Through the chair, I'm going to briefly introduce both of these. You have Director Gao online should you have specific questions. So 2 reports for decision. The first one is zoning amendment 127 related to 6954 Alberni Street. This is essentially before you for a decision for zoning that would facilitate a mixed commercial and residential use development. Staff have checked that it complies with various policies, including our sustainable official community plan. So you've got all the details there, and if you've got any questions, Director Gao and I are available. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Isaacson.
One question, just to clarify, the road, I know I'm familiar with the Service BC site that's along there, and there's kind of like a shared driveway. And so I'm wondering if the access to the parking spaces, and granted, we're not talking about the design at this point, we're talking about zoning, but I'm looking at the proponent's intent here. Would access be from the same road that Service BC uses, or in the map it seems like there's another lane-like road, and so if you could speak more to that through the chair, I'm hoping staff could clarify that for me.
I'm going to refer that to Director Gao. Director Gao, if you can clear that up, please.
Good evening, Council. I am just also looking at that image, and there's a reference to a service easement and an access drive. I do know that the corridor that shows up in, I think it's Appendix C to your report, or sorry, maybe Appendix E. Sorry, Appendix F. Illustrates that. I think there is some ownership that I would need to verify in terms of whether that would be a shared driveway. That's not my expectation, but I do know that there is an easement that does exist over property there to serve. I think it's actually a property to the rear, so I do not believe it would actually be a shared access way, but I do think that there is a servicing corridor that runs along underneath the Service BC property. In fact, so you're making me go back a couple of years now, and in fact, there is a city main that runs down from there to serve what is Joyce Commons. I believe it's a sanitary main that runs down there and connects into Alberni.
Thank you, Director Gao. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, can I get anyone to make the recommendation? Councillor Isaacson.
I move that council determines that City of Pell River zoning bylaw 2100-2006 amendment bylaw 2758-2024 is consistent with City of Pell River official community plan bylaw 2370-2014. The sole purpose of the bylaw is to permit a development at 6954 Alberni Street that is in whole or in part a residential development, and the residential component of the proposed development at 6954 Alberni Street will account for at least half of the gross floor area of all buildings and structures proposed as part of the development, and further that holding a public hearing under Local Government Act Section 464 Part 3 for proposed City of Pell River zoning bylaw 2100-2006 amendment bylaw 2754-2024 is prohibited.
Second by Councillor Southcott. Any comments? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Unanimous. Councillor Isaacson.
And I move that council direct staff to issue notice of council's intent to consider first reading of City of Pell River zoning bylaw 2100, 2006 amendment bylaw 2758, 2024 pursuant to Local Government Act section 467 at a future meeting of council, subject to meeting the following condition prior to zoning approval being granted. A requirement that the applicant be requested to work with staff to negotiate a voluntary community amenity contribution.
By Councillor Southcott. Any comments or questions? Councillor Isaacson.
Yeah, one question regarding the voluntary community amenity contribution. I seem to remember in the offer letter there was reference to $500. Was that per unit or for the overall site? Through the chair.
Clarity, Chair. Director Gow, I'll let you answer.
So typically, the voluntary offer amounts to $500 per unit. So the expectation, at least from staff, would be that it was $500 per unit.
Thank you very much.
Director Gow, does that include commercial units too, or just the residential?
Typically, it has been just residential, but in this case, it's one where we could look at if it's in fact a live-work situation, and that's what this is zoned for, this particular site. If it's strictly commercial, I think we would be looking just at the residential units.
Thank you. Councillor Palm, did you have a comment? Or? Yep. No problem. Thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Unanimous. That clears up 8.1. Moving into another development, 8.2. The vacant property at the end of Glacier Street, known as the Glacier Hill Development, zoning amendment 128.
Okay, through the chair, again, very brief introduction with Director Gow available. You'll notice there's no actual lot number for this vacant parcel. So you've got the legal there, and it falls between Gabriola Crescent and Glacier to permit a 9-lot subdivision, residential subdivision. So again, it's staff find it in keeping with the sustainable official community plan. And also you'll see there's also seeking your direction on some requirements of the applicant. So any questions you have, we're available. Thank you.
Councillor Isaacson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through the chair to staff. In the proposed motion 2A, it mentions a requirement that the applicant complete associated subdivision application, et cetera, et cetera. Is that aligned with the proponent's thinking? Or is that all procedural? Or sometimes we have a difference of what staff recommend and what the proponent desires. And so I just wanted to check in with that.
Through the chair, yes, this is based on the application of their subdivision application, sub 290.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Elliott.
For the proposed subdivision, all of the accesses for all of the lots are intended to be on the proposed new road. None of them are intended to be on the main road. Is that correct? On Manson.
Through the chair, perhaps Councillor Elliott can walk me through looking at Appendix B. So Glacier and Gabriola, the land to the east in this situation is actually airport lands. It's not Manson Avenue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. It looked like a road in the little thing that I was looking at, but anyway, thank you.
Fair enough. Yep.
I guess I'll ask to Director Gow. Believe the rest of that neighborhood, I think, is single-family dwellings. Are we, I guess, anticipating that these 9 lots that are going to be there are continuing to be single-family dwellings, or is it up to the developer if they chose to do like a duplex or something like that? I was just curious.
That's a great question and timely, considering Bill 44 having come into effect. The lots around, for the most part, are actually zoned RM1, which, if you go back to our discussions around Bill 44, were not considered restricted zones by the province, meaning they did not get those same development rights that other residentially zoned properties do. What we're looking for here is CD4 zoning, and CD4 zoning is a restricted zone, meaning a Bill 44 permissions would apply. So up to 4 units on each one of these units or lots could be built.
Thank you. Sounds like we got a lot of questions. So Councillor Isaacson.
I move that council determines that City of Pell River zoning bylaw 2100-2006 amendment bylaw 2769-2024 is consistent with City of Pell River official community plan bylaw 2370-2014. The sole purpose of the bylaw is to permit a development on a property legally described as Lot E DL 5110 Plan BCP 44629, except that part in EPP 109951 that is in whole or in part a residential development, and the residential component of the proposed development on a property legally described as Lot EDL 5110 Plan BCP 44629, except that part in EPP 109951 accounts for at least half of the gross floor area of all buildings and structures proposed as part of that development, and further that holding a public hearing under Local Government Act Section 464 Part 3 for proposed City of Pell River zoning bylaw 2100-2006 amendment bylaw 2769-2024 is prohibited.
Second by Councillor Southcott. Being no further comments, all in favor? Any opposed? That is unanimous. Councillor Isaacson.
I'll continue on. I move that council direct staff to issue notice of council's intent to consider first reading of City of Pell River zoning bylaw 2100-2006 amendment bylaw 2769-2024 pursuant to Local Government Act Section 467 at a future meeting of council, subject to meeting the following conditions prior to zoning approval being granted. A requirement that the applicant complete associated subdivision application 290 that proposes to subdivide the parcel between Gabriela Crescent and Glacier Street into 9 lots in keeping with the proposed layout provided by the applicant and attached to this report as Appendix F. And B, a requirement that the applicant be requested to work with staff to negotiate a voluntary community amenity contribution.
Second by Councillor Southcott. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Moving on to 9.1, the report from the municipal directors. I have reason to believe that there has not been a meeting with the regional directors rather, in the last 2 weeks since we had a meeting. So we will move on to 10.1, which is the draft bylaw 2771 lease rate bylaw repeal. Councillor Elliott.
I move that the City of Pell River lease rate bylaw repeal bylaw 2771 2024 be read a first time.
Moved second by Councillor Isaacson. And for the community's benefit, we just passed the property policy bylaw about 5 minutes ago. And this is to repeal, we passed the property policy 5 minutes ago, and this is to repeal the previous bylaw that would made it a little bit more restrictive. So any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Mayor. Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
I move that the City of Pell River lease rate bylaw repeal bylaw 2771 2024 be read a second time.
Second by Councillor Southcott. All in favor? Unanimous. Councillor Elliott.
I move that City of Pell River lease rate bylaw repeal bylaw 2771 2024 be read a third time.
Second by Councillor Southcott. All in favor? That's unanimous. Moving to 10.2, draft bylaw 2759, cannabis business license fee update.
Through the chair, I can give a brief overview if council wishes, or you can proceed.
Yes.
Okay, so council, what we have before you is returning to you following your direction from March 5th of this year regarding reducing fees for retail recreational cannabis stores. So following your direction, this is a report for decision about the first reading of the bylaw, and also confirming that council affirms that we have given reasonable notice requirements prior to future readings. So Mr. Gao is also online should you have any questions. Essentially, this is a follow through of your direction. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. And we didn't see anything come to us. I'm assuming we did not get any feedback from the community on this?
No,
Through
we
the
did not.
chair. Thank you, Mr. Gao.
Thank you for the answer, Mr. Gao. Okay, Councillor Isaacson.
Just to clarify, the report from September 12th that's in the package references first reading, but we're actually considering second and third reading tonight, according to the agenda. So I move that City of Powell River Business License Bylaw 2226, 2010 Amendment Bylaw number 2759, 2024 be read a second time.
Second by Councillor Southcott. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous.
I move that City of Powell River Business License Bylaw 2226, 2010 Amendment Bylaw number 2759, 2024 be read a third time.
Second by Councillor Southcott. And all in favor? That is unanimous. Moving on to 11.1, reconsideration of motions made November 7th, 2024, brought to us by the mayor. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I brought forth this reconsideration of motions passed at the last council meeting dealing with rezoning that would be the start of a process that could lead to city land being used for another BC housing supportive housing project. The key rationale for this initiative comes from the Premier. In a series of talks and interviews during his announcement of a new cabinet, he has stated that a key reason for his party going from a huge majority to a slim majority was the negative impact some of their innovative programs have had on communities across the province. BC Housing's experimental housing project on Joyce Avenue, while not mentioned specifically by the Premier, is an example of the negative impact an unproven approach to a social challenge has had on our residents and our businesses. Since being elected in 2022, I've listened to many delegations, received texts, emails, phone calls, and had one-on-one discussions with individuals who have suffered because of this project. I've also met with senior BC housing staff and advised them of the work of Dr. William Glacier, which has been used by communities across North America to provide supportive housing without any negative impacts. While ministry staff stated that they would look at this and get back to me, I've heard nothing back from them in the last 2 years. To be very clear, I have always supported programs to help individuals with housing needs. During my career, I have chaired organizations in 3 cities that have successfully planned and implemented supportive housing programs that had no negative impact on the communities in which they were located. However, and I have made this clear to BC housing executives and managers since 2022, their unproven model they chose for the Joint Choice project has caused many problems. So what is the opportunity that Council now has to turn that project into a positive for the city? Firstly, the Premier has made it crystal clear commitment to the residents of BC that he and his cabinet will take steps to correct situations like what we face in Powell River. Many of you are aware that he has done away with the Ministry of Mental Health and Addiction and returned their mandate to the Ministry of Health. Secondly, and I believe most importantly, Powell River has an MLA who has the experience and background to be a strong advocate to correct the Joyce Avenue housing experiment. The Premier has recognized her abilities by appointing her to the Cabinet, by asking for her assistance. We demonstrate to her that we understand and respect the power that the Premier has given to her. Further, we know that Minister Neal will be part of the Cabinet discussions on the priorities for meeting the Premier's commitment to address the negative impacts some of their projects have had on residents. We want Minister Neal to advocate that the Joyce Avenue supportive housing project be on that priority list. Why is the Joyce Street project an experiment? Simply put, it was not based on tried and true approaches to managing supportive housing projects. For example, to minimize operational costs, residents of the project were required to allow the BC government to take back their social assistance payments. This allowed BC Housing to state that because they had paid to be in the project, they had all of the rights of a renter and no responsibilities. As we all know, this resulted in an array of illegal activities at the Joyce Street location, with management response continually being, there is nothing we can do because they have all the rights of a renter. In summary, Council has the opportunity tonight to rescind bylaws and focus on asking our MLA, Minister Neal, to assist us in resolving one of the most pressing issues facing our city. I encourage my council colleagues to reconsider the motions that were passed and support and ask of Minister Neal to help our city. Thank you. I'll answer any questions.
So just for procedure clarity, and those that are looking at the package, there are 8 different, 7 different motions here that the mayor is referring to. A couple of them were second and third readings, so should the first one go, then the second and third one would be moot. How this process would work is the mayor is asking for a decision to revisit. Yeah, I see you, Councilor Note. And they would need to be addressed on an individual basis, motion by motion at a time, and stuff. So I will get to Councilor Doat, then turn it back to the mayor.
Oh, first I've got a question for the corporate officer, and then I've got some comments to make. And the corporate officer recently sent out instructions to council about the corporate officer's point of view on how reconsideration motions are treated. And I think what we have here is a reconsideration motion for 7 motions. One is to create a committee to talk to BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health and other agencies to meet with council and talk about the proposed new housing project, and including clarity on the level of services, and first, second, and third reading of the 2 bylaws about land use that could be used for supportive housing. And my question to staff or to the corporate officer is, if these reconsideration motion passes, I understand that that means that these motions are defeated. And in the instructions that I read about reconsideration motion, once you do a reconsideration and defeat a motion that was previously passed, those motions cannot be brought back to the floor of the council again. Am I correct on that? And if I'm not, when could they be brought back?
Through the chair, that piece is correct. Once an item is reconsidered, it cannot be reconsidered again. The only difference is that there isn't a motion to reconsider. The mayor has authority to demand that council reconsider the motion. So the motions are now on the floor and we'll do one at a time, of course, but as we've been moved and seconded, and then the vote will just be redone for each motion.
I understand that if we vote in favor of the reconsideration, that these motions would be defeated, that they would be stricken from the record. There wouldn't be any decision. But in the notes, you said that once a reconsideration had been made and dealt with, the motions could not be brought forth before council again. And my question is that right? Or if we could be brought back in front of council, when would that be?
Through the chair again, yes, you are correct on that. The piece that isn't quite correct is that there isn't a motion to reconsider. So it's just the motion is now just on the floor. So you will be voting on this motion again. And if it's and then if it's defeated at that time, or maybe that's what you're saying and I'm misunderstanding, apologies. But otherwise, yes, you're correct about it. Can't be brought back.
I'll try again. I'm just trying to get an answer to the question.
I'm trying to get clarity on it too. So
Okay.
Understanding correctly, I think I misinterpreted before. I thought at first we had to vote to reconsider and then vote again, but now the motion is like it's brand new to be re-voted on.
Yeah.
See, almost like it didn't happen, and this vote now is we've kind of done it in pencil, we've erased it now, and now we're going to write it in pen.
That's correct. This is a power that the mayor has under the community charter. So if it were another member of council, there would be a motion voted on. The mayor's privilege is that it is before you without a motion, so you can go straight to reconsidering it. Thank you.
And then to go back to Councillor Doubt's point, then where something can only be reconsidered once, that would that then mean this could be left open for another member of council to reconsider should they choose to down the road, or would that nullify that because the mayor has brought that up?
Through the chair, because I'm not 100% sure. My understanding is that it can't be brought back, but can I look to Ms. Walls for confirmation?
Through the chair, that's correct. Once it's reconsidered, regardless of the vote today, it cannot be brought back.
Yeah, thank you. I think I better.
Can I clarify what my question was?
Sure, go ahead, Councillor Dope.
Because this is a reconsideration of motions that were made before. We're going to vote simply on yes or no. We agree with reconsideration. So if we agree, we're defeating these motions. And can I finish? Okay, it's easier to explain my question if I could say the whole thing. Okay, if we pass this motion, and the two land use bylaw, the three readings of the two land use bylaws are defeated, then can we bring those back again in 2 months to move that we make first, second, and third passes of those bylaws? First, second, and third readings of those two bylaws, or are we stopped from doing that? I think we are.
Through the chair, you're correct, you are. And I just want to make it clear that this is literally resetting the clock as if you'd never taken the vote, and you're going to go through all of those motions and vote on each one. And Councillor Dowd is absolutely correct. If once you do that, even if the outcome is the same as before or different, it cannot be brought back.
And if I'm understanding the process correctly, thank you, Councillor Dowd. So if we were to reverse this and vote against the motions about the rezoning, and we pursue the conversations with BCH and BC Housing that has been discussed about having, and even if all those conversations go the direction that we want and they give us the the royal carpet and all the things that we request in terms of services, we can't go back and rezone the road because we've already turned it down.
Through the chair, Ms. Walls, can you provide an answer to that?
Through the chair, if I think these bylaws, if the context around the bylaws changes, they would essentially be a different bylaw. So let's say this were defeated today, and 2 years down the road, there's another development or something. Excuse my poor planning terminology, but if something similar was to be brought up again, these new bylaws would come in front of council. So it's not that these specifically would be brought back.
Okay.
Mr. Gale can correct me if I'm wrong on the planning procedure side of things, but procedurally, that's how we would see it on this end.
And might I add, before Mr. Gao speaks, this would also mean that we would, if there were any changes to the conditions or the road closure removal bylaw, that we would have to also go back to the qathet hospital board on that. Thanks.
Okay, so that was my question. What will happen if we rescind these bylaws and the motion for a committee? So I'm not in favor of doing the rescinding. We've passed the 3 bylaws. We've passed a motion after a lot of consideration made by Councillor Elliott at the last meeting to set up a committee process to talk to Vancouver Coastal Health and BC Housing and to consider all the aspects of the possible supportive housing construction. We've passed 3 readings of the bylaws. We've got permission from the qathet Regional Hospital District to change the use of the land. And I've heard, and council has heard from staff that they won't be doing anything more to bring the next reading of these bylaws until at least sometime in the new year. Of all of the various issues that have to be contacted and worked with before we can do the next steps of the bylaws. So I think there is plenty of time to get in touch with the new ministers and to talk to all of the people that are involved, Vancouver Coastal Health and Vancouver and BC Housing, about the neighborhood's concerns about how the housing might operate or how it might be operated and what we would like to see and what we don't like to see. And we can find out from the Premier himself and from the ministers what they think would happen. We can do all that without rescinding these bylaws. And if we do rescind them, it's going to be harder to restart and go on again, and we're going to lose more time to delays. My concern is that the BC Housing will find a way to spend its money elsewhere and deal with housing in communities that are more prepared to welcome it. So I'm against these deferrals, these rescindings, and I think we should just go ahead, talk to BC Housing, Vancouver Coastal Health, and the other agencies that we need to, so we can get busy talking about how to have a better future with this and not continue reconsidering it every time we get together.
Okay, Councillor Doubt. Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you, Chair. And just to clarify for the audience and for council, when the vote comes, we are not voting to rescind. We're voting on the original motion. So we're reconsidering it as if it's on the floor again. And so if you support, for example, the first motion of extending an invitation to BCH and BC Housing and BCH, then you would vote in the affirmative. And if you want to reconsider and vote that motion down, then you would vote against. So we're not voting to rescind, we're voting as if the original motion is on the floor and we're reconsidering it. And so I appreciate the mayor bringing this forward. In his view, there's new information in terms of what the announcements have been since the election. It's not sufficient for me to question my original vote on this. And so I'd like to carry things forward, especially have that conversation with BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health and move things along so that we can figure out what's possible and what's needed with the partners on this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isaacson. I've got Councillor Palm, then the mayor, and Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, through the chair. First of all, I want to say, Mayor, having been here for quite some time, I know that a reconsideration of motions don't happen every day. And this is a major decision that you have made in this regard, and I appreciate you doing this for further discussion based on recent developments after the election and comments that the Premier has made. The one thing that I wanted to say in terms of what's being brought back, we're reconsidering this, and just so the public's well aware, I voted against the 3 motions originally, and there was a reason around that, and it was emphasized to me through emails and that I received in the last 2 weeks. And one of the comments that came forward was that Councillor Palm stated, "No rush at all." Maybe I said that. I'm not sure what I said in that regard, but I want to clarify what I meant by no rush at all. And that is, without change to what is being provided, we go ahead with a second unit as is, we are doubling the concerns of our citizens. I know that there are people that are homeless that are in need, and I don't lose sight of that. But I also have to take into account the concerns in the neighborhood and the safety, which is paramount when I'm sitting in this seat, of our general population, including youth and kids that access our complex and that area on a frequent basis. So there are so many ramifications around this, and I could go on and on. And I spoke about them the last time around, and I'm not going to reiterate what I said in terms of location, in terms of what it's doing for developers, property owners in that area that want to develop in the future. All of those things rest at this table on the decisions we make here, and we don't make them lightly. So when I say we're not in a rush, we need the facts. And right now we don't have them all. And I'll be making another motion later this evening that hopefully addresses some of those concerns about information that we need to move forward. Now, Councillor Doubt has said that we could go ahead, and this is not going to, there are all kinds of ramifications around this, and we're not going to readdress this until after Christmas and the new year at some time. But I think what the mayor, and I want to clarify with the mayor on his intent, because right now I'm a little vague on the intent. Mayor, I'm going to ask you the question directly. Was your intent of your motion tonight to revisit all of the motions we passed previously, including Councillor Elliott's motion to involve correspondence and a meeting with BC Housing and VCH? Or was your intent just to not go down the road with the meeting with those agencies and reach out to our MLA for further discussion so that she can take your concerns forward to cabinet? Can you just speak to that, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. It's what you said initially. It's to revisit, to reconsider. And the important issue that councillors appear to have missed is today, one of the most serious issues in Powell River is a dysfunctional supportive housing project put in by BC Housing. Anybody who disputes that has not read the hundreds of letters, listened to delegates, or had any type of interaction. What I am saying is there is an opportunity to turn Joyce Avenue into a supportive housing project that will meet the goals that we all have. This will only happen if our member, who is a cabinet minister, will advocate for us so that when the premier and the cabinet are choosing, those mistakes that have been made to be corrected, Howe River will be on that list. And what that means, we could be looking at the end of spring 2025 with a reopening of a facility with 40 plus beds for people who require the housing, with a management system in place to give them support. And that management system will ensure there will be no negative impact on the community and businesses. And I am confident about this because, unlike the rest of council, I have actually put in place supportive housing projects that accomplished the desired goal with no impact on the community. So to me, it is ridiculous to start talking about another supportive housing one and ignoring the realities of the challenges that people have with the existing one and the opportunity that the city has to turn that around to be a benefit and not a hindrance.
Thank you for that clarification, Mayor. If I may, Chair, just finish my two comments.
Go ahead.
A couple of other notes that I had earlier this week that put in simple statements as to what the mayor just alluded to. And here's one that's very simple. This came from a resident. Fix the problems of supportive housing A before starting supporting housing B is the only wise move. I agree with that statement because we have to do something to rectify that situation. And secondly, another email, as councillors, your job shall be to bring order and public safety back to our community. Safety is the #1 consideration sitting in this seat that councillors have to address. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Mayor, you were next on the speaking order. Did you have some other comments to add?
Excuse me. Sorry. No, that I think I've clarified the importance of dealing with the issue at hand and the opportunity that our very gifted MLA, who's now in the cabinet, can help address that and make it a reality.
Thank you, Mayor. I got Councillor Elliott, then followed by Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for everybody. So much of what I wanted to say has been addressed by Councillor Doubt and Councillor Isaacson. I think we can continue to converse and invite our MLA, the Honourable Neil, to speak with us and hopefully even attend some of the meetings coming up. The fact that mental health and addiction is now within the Ministry of Health doesn't change the delivery agency, which is Vancouver Coastal Health. Vancouver Coastal Health delivered programs from both of those ministries already and will continue to do so. The combination of housing with municipal affairs is an interesting move, and I look forward to seeing what becomes of that. But that means that both BC Housing and ourselves share the same minister now, and I suspect it is to coordinate better the activities of municipal affairs and housing under the same minister. And so meeting with BC Housing and a municipality now is shared under the same jurisdiction. And so that, I think, means that meeting can go ahead and would definitely benefit from the presence of our MLA. the Honorable Neil. And so rather than rescinding, I think we're on the right track in having these conversations. I don't see how rescinding supports us having those conversations any better than the situation we have with the motions the way they are. I feel that having good faith negotiations and discussions would work better with the situation the way we have it. But I would support an additional motion to extend an invitation to our new MMLA, the Honorable Neil, to join us and perhaps maybe have a preliminary conversation with her about the support we're looking for. So that's how I feel. And I feel that fairly strongly that rescinding those motions would make us appear a little bit uncooperative to all of to the provincial agencies that we need to talk to. And I don't want to do that. I think we appear to be doing a better job of trying hard to find solutions for the people who don't have homes on the streets by continuing forward with our discussions and trying to solve all of our issues through this process. Where I think we're more likely to get the resources we need to solve our issues by moving forward rather than stalling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure we all agree to address these, that addressing the pressing issues that the Mayor speaks to is a very high priority. I'm really counting on us not only going through our MLA, but doing approaching the province any possible way we can. And we do have other direct avenues as well. We do have contacts through Vancouver Coastal. We do have connections with BC Housing. And I expect us to do everything we possibly can. We've already set some of that work in motion. But I also believe that these pressing issues are much broader than housing. And the housing project in focus here is housing. Without housing, those pressing issues are pretty hard to address. And I'm sure none of us have missed that the bulk, a great majority of housing development or development, residential development in our community in the past couple of years is multifamily. That's the way it is right now. The disadvantaged people who reside at 4910 Joyce, most of them, I think, were in distributed housing all over the community. That was my experience when I was involved in pre-hospital care for many years prior to the real estate boom in the mid-teens, 20-teens, that basically pushed a lot of these people out of housing. Thank you, free market. Well, the free market, real estate market, and what's happened in it recently. And we're all really aware of that as well. So we can't do without housing. We will get nowhere by delaying this, except for exacerbating our problems. And to think that we're going to solve them by focusing in on one element, and that is housing, I think is really diluting ourselves. We're also going to talk about this farther down on the agenda. We need to work at this, and we have work to do here, and this community can do it. I'm pretty confident of that. So I think it's pretty clear what my sentiments are about these motions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Southcott. Mr. Mayor.
I just want to clarify. Discussions have been ongoing with BC Housing, Health, and others for over 2 years. There has been zero improvement in the way the Joyce Avenue project has been managed. Why anybody would continue down the same path that has been followed by talking with managers in those organizations is beyond me. if nothing has happened after 2 years, you should be getting the signal that you want to go a different path. And from my many years' experience in federal, provincial, municipal politics, I know that that path is to engage your MLA, especially if she happens to be a minister, to champion your cause. She has 1,000 times more potential impact than all of the people that we've talked to over the last 2 years. So you may feel good saying, well, we're just going to continue along. But what have you had 2 years of failure at that you have not wondered whether or not another approach should be taken? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will share a couple comments and then we'll call the vote. The mayor made reference to the premier acknowledging the change in the number of seats in the House and the fact that, yes, we do have a new MLA who's also a minister. I look at this project and to be honest, my feelings haven't changed in terms of where we're at. I'm in favor of having the conversations with the parties in question and to delve a little bit further to make sure that as we move forward, things are done better. And yes, maybe the last 2 years, the conversations haven't moved the way they are, but as the mayor has stated, the premier himself has acknowledged that the results of the election indicated or were as a result of some of the NDP's processes in the last term not working out as well. So the NDP themselves have realized that some change needs to happen. They've made the changes themselves in their internal party. I believe that we can still have these conversations. I believe that we're probably still maybe even a year or more away from groundbreaking because there's so many other steps in this process to partake in that we can have these conversations and there'll be many votes on this matter that still need to pass in order for this project to ever start being built. And so I think we can do those conversations simultaneously and maybe down the road things change. Maybe we have those conversations and this council goes in a different direction, but that's for us to figure out down the road. And I think with us telling the province, hey, we are ready to move forward, but we have some hesitations. Let's sit down and iron it out. I think by having this vote in the positive, it shows the province that we want to have that conversation. I'll call the question here so that, yes.
Is it now up to us to read these motions again?
No, the motions as they are on the floor. So I will read them. We have to vote on them individually. I will read on what we're voting on and then call the vote. Councillor Dope.
It's a simple question. If you read them and we vote in favor, does that mean those motions stand? If we vote no, that they're defeated?
Technically, we've erased them right now, so this motion is a fresh motion. We're not defeating anything because it's just on the floor, as if we didn't vote before.
If I vote yes and the majority votes yes, that means that they will happen.
Yes.
If I vote no and the majority votes no, they will not happen.
Correct.
Thank you. I think that's quite clear. I wanted to make sure it was clear.
Okay. So the first motion on the floor is that council direct staff to extend an invitation to BCH and VCH and other agencies to meet with council and discuss the proposed new housing project, including clarity on the level of services. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Palm and the mayor are opposed. That motion passes. Next one. That City of Powell River permanent closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw 2760/2024 be read a first time. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Palm and the mayor are opposed. That motion passes. That City of Powell River permanent closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw 2760/2024 be read a second time. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Palm and the mayor are opposed. That motion passes. That City of Powell River permanent closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw 2760/2024 be read a third time. All in favor? All opposed? Mayor and Councillor Palm oppose. Motion passes. That City of Powell River zoning bylaw 2100/2006 amendment bylaw 2761/2024 be read a first time. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Palm and the mayor opposed. The motion passes. That City of Powell River zoning bylaw 2100/2006 amendment bylaw 2761/2024 be read a second time. All in favor? All opposed? Mayor and Council Palm opposed. That motion passes. That City of Powell River zoning bylaw 2100/2006 amendment bylaw 2761/2024 be read a third time. All in favor? All opposed? Mayor and Council Palm opposed. That motion passes. Councilor Palm.
It's just a question to the chair, and that is one of the items that the mayor has alluded to strongly this evening is reaching out to our MLA. I'm just wondering if council would entertain a motion to not just have the MLA meet with the group that has already been proposed by Councillor Elliott, but to have a meeting directly with council and include the Ratepayers Association and whoever else wants to join that meeting, to have a good, concise dialogue on all of the issues from all perspectives. So our MLA is fully informed going to our cabinet meetings, because, and the reason I ask is I hear a great deal on the news about Vancouver. I hear a great deal on the news about Nanaimo, my hometown, but I do not hear anything on the news in regards to our community. So I think it's very important that we reach out and start that dialogue and get some traction to let our MLA, newly elected, know we are gravely concerned with what's happening at the present time.
Just to clarify, Councilor Palm, that was the motion you were making?
Mayor, you probably have a concise motion to that effect.
I have one.
Councillor Elliott's got one.
Okay.
Okay, Councilor Elliott, we'll go to you.
I move that staff be directed to invite our MLA, the Honorable Neil, to meet with council and join us in our meetings regarding the proposed new housing project.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a second by Councilor Doubt, and give Councilor Elliott. Do you want to discuss first, or I got Councilor Doubt on the line?
Well, I agree with the mayor that we should be bringing in our MLA and getting any assistance we can from her to solve issues with respect to the housing in our community, including solving existing issues that we may have, increasing resources so that we can do that. And so I thought this motion to invite her to meet with us so we can explain that and hopefully get her permission to join us in the meetings subsequent to that with all, where we're talking about housing, so that she might advocate on our behalf and take that knowledge with her to the cabinet.
Okay, and Councilor Elliott, can you, for corporate officers' benefit, can you just repeat the last tail end so she has it on the screen?
The council and join us in our meetings. No, staff be directed to invite our MLA, the Honorable Neil.
Randy and Neil.
Yeah, the Honorable Randy Neil, to meet with council and join in our meetings regarding the proposed new housing project.
Councilor Doubt.
Seconded that.
Yeah. Or I thought you had something else. Councillor
I
Isaacson.
had my hand up. I'd like to speak.
Okay, yeah, that was over to you.
And I think this is a great idea. And I think we could do that at a public meeting. We don't need to specify one ratepayers group or any small group. I think it'd be great to have the MLA come and talk to us about housing and have that be a public meeting. Probably have to organize a bigger room than this, but I think it would be a positive and a good thing to do, to have all sides heard from. The sides that have deep concerns about supportive housing in their neighborhood, and the sides that want to talk about the need for all kinds of housing, supportive housing, transitional housing, special care housing of all kinds. It'd be great to have a clear conversation with our new MLA, a person fresh to the job and all excited to get on with it. And hopefully there will be plenty of time for the new minister and the new government to work on that as they go ahead. But I support this whole hog, and I think it would be a great thing to happen. A public meeting with the MLA would be great.
Thank you, Councillor Isaacson.
Question of clarity for the original motion was to join in our meetings regarding the new supportive housing project. Was the intention through the chair for that to be the meeting with Vancouver Coastal Health and BC Housing? And often when the province meets with us, we don't necessarily get to dictate terms. And so I'm wondering if what Councillor Doubt is saying was the original intent of the motion, and whether we anticipate it would be possible, and if that offer is not accepted, would the intention still be to meet in private if that was the will of the minister?
Councillor Elliott.
So I think when we're trying to meet with people and have conversations, we can't always dictate terms. And so my intention is to have staff discuss with the people we're inviting what they might like, as well as what we might like, and hopefully arrive at a meeting or several meetings that meet maybe in different forums and so forth. Again, with the flexibility to allow us to invite people in an open way that they also have a say in what happens. So yeah, I've left those details out of the motion so that we can have meetings and discuss what we need, and hopefully have more meetings that might meet the needs of everybody. So that was what I was thinking, a diplomatic way to start conversations about this.
And a follow-up question. I know when we go to UBCM and have ministerial meetings there, we're often joined by our MLA, but those meetings are, MLA's in the room and it's a political to political staff support, but it's political to political. BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health, those are employees of the province. And so I'm wondering if there's any issue of like the political versus the staff being in the room. And I'm looking through the chair to our CAO, Bopal Singh, who has maybe more experience with knowing that procedure in having political people in rooms with provincial staff.
Oh, through the chair, if you're talking about MLAs and their staff?
Well, for example, if council's meeting with staff from BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health, and that our MLA is also there, is that, like, are there any issues with having provincial staff?
No, through the chair, each MLA will often dictate which staff they want there to support them. That's fairly common. And at the same time, you're allowed to meet directly with senior staff separate to the MLA as well. Thank you.
We got the mayor, then Councillor Doe.
Thank you. I would like to propose an amendment by adding join in our meetings regarding the additional is the existing and proposed new housing project.
Second, Councillor Elliott.
And speak to it.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Elliott, and go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
So I think we could talk to our MLA about all the housing in our community. It just provides a bit of confusion around the original motion did not talk about existing housing. It talked about the proposed new housing. But I don't think we're having only one meeting, so I think it might be okay.
Councillor Dope.
Yeah, I'm fine with this amendment. I think it's great. I think, the best that we can do as who we are is invite people to come to meetings. And they can either accept or reject our invitation. And if they have problems with it, I'm sure they can tell us what the problems might be. But I think reaching out to all of these agencies and groups and inviting them to a meeting and hopefully inviting the public as well is a good way to get communications going. And, our new MLA will, I'm sure, be brave enough to say if they don't want to meet with a particular group. And, I wouldn't do that myself as a new minister. But, if they have concerns about meeting with other government agencies, they can tell us about that. And we can find ways. We can always adjust and find a way to do what we want to do to get the communication happening. I think that's the important part. And this motion would go a long way towards doing that.
Seeing no further comment on the amendment, I will call the question. All in favor? And that motion passes unanimously, which takes us back to the now amended motion. Have we gone through all the conversation? Not seeing any new hands. So call the question on the amended motion. All in favor? That is unanimous. Okay, moving on to 12.1. We had a couple notices of motions a couple of weeks ago. So 12.1 on the veteran crosswalk. Mr. Mayor, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The move that Council directs staff to include an expense of $2,500 in 2025 and $1,500 annually thereafter, funded by property tax for a veteran crosswalk in draft 1 of the 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan.
Second by Councillor Palm. Councillor Isaacson, go ahead.
Just a question. I know we had a previous motion passed about getting a report back from staff on a different painted crosswalk. And so I'm wondering, okay, there is the proposed design, it looks like. And so having this in the budget, is it anticipated that, like the other crosswalk, we would get a report from staff when it comes to like location and whether these are the, I'm not sure where the numbers are. I'm sure you got them from staff, but there's details only in this motion about the cost and getting it in the budget, but the actual implementation of it to me is like a bit of a different thing. So I'm curious how far this motion takes us to implementation or just getting the money in the budget.
CEO.
Through the chair, we don't have Director Berteg with us tonight. However, we can get those answers to you. What this does is it gets us in the budget. Staff have considered 2 locations, and I think we would come back to you to confirm which of the 2 would be appropriate. One, the numbers you have are from staff. That's in the mayor's motion, and one of the locations is near Dwight Hall, near an existing crosswalk. The other is the Legion, and so council may wish for our staff to have some conversations with veterans, perhaps, around confirming which of the 2 is preferential. In terms of the wider piece around crosswalks, I'll have to defer to Mr. Berteg on timing for that. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott and Councillor Doe.
Thank you. So are these numbers consistent with other crosswalks we're maintaining, or is this a new thing? I've never had us look at an annual budget for crosswalks before. And so I think they're line items, like I think other crosswalks are taken care of too, and they're done however many years apart that are required. And this seems to assume that we need to repaint every year. So I'm just curious about the structure of the motion.
Through the chair, I don't have all the answers for you without the expert staff. However, this is a bit unique. This isn't a standard crosswalk, so the initial costs are based on the stencils and colors similar to other crosswalks we have that are special, that aren't regular. So there's a little bit more to this than a regular crosswalk. So I can't, unfortunately, give you the comparables to the regular maintenance schedule of crosswalks that are more simple, black and white. But I can ask staff to come back and give you those details. Thank you.
I would assume, looking at the colors, knowing that red and white are commonly used with some of our current line painting, that probably helps a little bit without acquiring additional colors that we don't normally carry, is my thought, not being an expert in the space. Councillor Doudt and Councillor Southcott.
Yeah, and and the motion says to include a certain amount for painting a crosswalk and a certain amount for maintaining it every year, and that it be included in draft 1 of the budget. It's not a final draft of the budget, it's draft 1. And there are a bunch of other things that will be included in draft 1 of the budget, including our expected revenues and our forecasted tax rates. And experience shows me that things tend to change from draft 1 to the final accepted draft, and there's a lot of places to go. So we've got what I assume is a picture of a veterans crosswalk in some other town as an example. Doesn't mean that that's what would show up. And, there'd be discussions about where it's going to be. I know I just saw an email at the beginning of this meeting about one resident who is concerned about quite a number of other standard crosswalks. And the cost of that maybe should be in the budget too. And there will be a lot of things to talk about, but I don't have a problem with including it in draft 1. Recognizing the veterans is a good thing to do. Picking the right place is a good thing to do. But at the end of the day, when we come down to our final budget and how much the taxes increase is going to be, everything will have to be balanced, and I'll have to make a decision on our priorities. But for now, why not include it in the draft?
Thank you, Councillor Doudt. Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. I reflect on previous considerations of crosswalks that cost anywhere from $20,000 for the flashing light variety to $125,000 for the overhead lights, which we've been told are essential. So I'm sure this information will be forthcoming when staff comes back with more information. I like the idea, and coming from a multi-generational family of veterans. Also, I'd be interested to know what $2,500 and $1,500 are in cost for average family dwelling, like we're looking at. So I'm sure that'll be in subsequent information as well. But in principle, I support this.
Councillor Baum.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to see this come forward. Mayor, I want to thank you for bringing it forward. I think this is long overdue in our community in light of what's happening in the world at the present time. And look forward to seeing this in our budget discussions for deliberation.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. My comments, similar to Councillor Doudt. This is going to draft 1 right now, so it's just being added to our conversation as budget deliberations start. Councillor Isaacson made reference to another crosswalk that came across our desk about a year or so ago, I think. My feelings on that crosswalk and this crosswalk are somewhat similar. I would love to, when I saw the picture of this on social media some time ago, I thought that's pretty cool and a great way to honor our veterans. The one thing I just don't like about painted crosswalks is that they fade, and they look good for a period of time, and then they need to be touched up every single time. So it's an ongoing maintenance cost because Mother Nature and cars and vehicles and everything else. I would almost much rather look at having this as a mural, or maybe not exactly that type of mural, but a mural that honors them the same way, that will not get the same type of natural abuse that a road will, and will not require the same maintenance and will also not be a walking hazard. We had a report last winter of several crosswalks that are regular crosswalks that our residents had a hard time crossing when the conditions got a little icy. An entire strip of paint across a road is not going to be any better, and any salt we put on it's just going to damage the paint even more. So I don't mind bringing this forward. I think it's a great way to honor our veterans. I just think a mural or some other art form might be a little bit better, but happy to have this conversation for now. So call the question. All in favor? That is unanimous. Moving to 12.2, housing the unhoused. Councillor Palm, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. For those of you that weren't in the committee of the whole meeting a couple weeks ago, there are two parts to the motions I'm bringing forward tonight, and both were presented to us by the Ratepayers Society, the Westview Ratepayers, which also incorporates now the town site and Wildwood. And just get the Mr. Craig, the president, to nod his head if Cranberry is also involved in this situation. Not yet, but they perhaps will be joining in the future. So that's our entire city population represented by ratepayers groups. And I just want to thank the ratepayers groups for doing all the fine work they're doing to bring these items forward for us to consider. And I'm just going to read the motion and see if I get a seconder for part one of this motion. Whereas there have been no external, objective, and thorough evaluation of the existing supportive housing at 4910 Joyce Avenue that can serve as a basis for deciding how well the current project is working and help the community and council to assess the merits and viability of the BC Housing second supportive housing proposal, be it resolved that the City of Powell River request the BC Housing immediately fund an external objective and imperial evaluation of the existing housing complex at 4910 Joyce Avenue and indicate to BC Housing that this evaluation should be made public and be used to decide the merits of the second supportive housing proposal.
Second by the mayor. Councillor Palm.
So for further comments through the chair, as I said earlier this week, without the informed information that you need to make an informed decision in regards to what is presently happening and a second supportive housing, if you don't do an evaluation of current practice, you really have no basis for a decision on a second facility. And this is long overdue. This building now has been in place for 4 or 5 years. And there has not been a thorough evaluation of what is being provided. And there are a lot of concerns out there. And I have to say that earlier this week, when a citizen emailed a picture of the facility, who stated he did walks on a regular daily basis of the area because he lives right there. He showed the picture and he was concerned for safety of not only adults, but specifically children, because in the picture, coming off the just across the street from the existing building on Joyce, where you could see the existing building, and on the sidewalk early in that morning was a needle. So if you can tell me, with kids accessing the complex and walking down that sidewalk daily, that that's a safety practice, I don't think so. And something needs to be rectified in that regard. And until we do an evaluation of what's going on, we don't know what we're facing. And we don't know what we're duplicating. So for that simple reason, I think this is a very smart request of our ratepayers society to have that work done. And we have the time now to initiate this because we're putting off a final reading of a second building for some time, and that evaluation can be done. So, council, I'll wait your further comments. This is your decision.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Councillor Southcott.
Thanks, Chair. I appreciate the work that led to this motion, and I'm very aware that it was a lot of work. I appreciate the careful consideration put into it by knowledgeable people who contributed to it, knowledgeable and experienced people. I support the principle of us being involved in finding solutions for problems, and absolutely don't deny that our community has problems. Lots of communities in BC have problems like these problems, and they've been around for a long time, but not that long in communities our size. However, the assumption that evaluating 4910 Joyce will inform a decision on 5,000 Joyce proposed development, I think is faulty, because it embraces a great scope of problems and challenges to community. And BC Housing basically is about housing. So I wouldn't want to send this to BC Housing because I think that they would reject our request simply on the basis that the concerns cover a much greater scope than housing itself simply covers. This resolution needs more work, and if it had more work, I'm pretty confident that it could come to a development that I would support, and I'd be really glad to be involved in that work. And I bet more than me at this table would be as well. So I support the principle. Unfortunately, I don't support the resolution because of the reasons I just stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Southcott. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, also, support the principle, but not the motion, and in the sense that when I sat down, I had a meeting with Mr. Craig, and there's 2 pages with a variety of, there was more motions than these proposed. There were a number of priorities that were mentioned. And I take those as a bit of as information to take with me into, for example, a meeting with Vancouver Coastal Health and BC Housing, so that I can ask a range of questions and learn more about evaluation practices and what their commitments are. So I support evaluation. I support understanding what the intentions are and what how success is measured and what success looks like in their eyes at the new site, the new proposed site. But yeah, don't support the resolution as written. Thanks.
You, Councillor Isaacson. Any other comments? Yeah. Councillor Dow.
Yeah, and I've looked at these and a couple of comments, and actually I think a better doorway to talking with Vancouver Coastal Health and BC Housing is the motion we previously passed, getting together in a positive way to talk about improvements for the operation of supportive housing and taking care of the neighborhoods that are there. This is kind of a direction to BC Housing, and I'm not sure that they would necessarily accept it or do anything with it other than make their own determination about what they're doing. I think we have a lot better chance of success in getting together and trying to work collaboratively together on that. The other, I have to make a comment. I was hoping I could avoid it actually, but you know, with Councillor Palm telling us that the ratepayers group represents all of the citizens of Powell River, it just, you know, I respect the work that ratepayers organizations do. I respect the Westview ratepayers. I have been, I'm not currently, but I have been a member of the Wildwood ratepayers. And when I got my minutes of the Wildwood ratepayers meeting, where they signed on to that letter, it was voted on by 2 members of the Wildwood ratepayers executive. 2 members voted in favor of the executive, 1 abstained. That's not all of the people in Wildwood. It's a sample. It's a valid organization, but let's not overstate what's going on. You know, and I think there is a better way than demanding that BC Housing do things. There's a better way to get things done, and that is to talk to them face to face and negotiate a situation where we can get problems resolved.
Thank you, Councillor Doe. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. So I see much of what's addressed in this motion that has respectfully come forward from the ratepayers as issues that we definitely need to advocate with. I don't think it's helpful to approach the provincial government who runs programs across the entire province with a specific ultimatum for our one community, which they would then have to develop a program for, because they can't. The provincial government does things through programs. They have to develop programs, policies before they can roll it out, because that's, you know, in order to meet the auditor's requirements, that's what they have to do. And so while there are parts of a minister's office that may be able to have a study done and fund it through the minister's budget, the programming areas require development of programs to do those things. So it would be disrespectful to approach them and assume they have no evaluation criteria or processes in place, because they probably do. A conversation to talk about evaluation and how that might be improved, and taking all of these concerns with us to advocate through UBCM, ADICC, and all of the meetings that we're going to be having coming up, I think will be more effective than having a motion on the floor that specifically indicates exactly what we think they ought to do with their programs. So I just think it won't be effective to approach the conversation that way. So as an intergovernmental relationship perspective, I want to approach our conversations in a much more collaborative tone than what this motion has. And so I do think we have motions on the floor to talk to all of these agencies. When we have information like this, that with proposed motions come forward, that definitely helps us when we take our concerns to our MLA, to ministers, to UBCM. When we're crafting resolutions for those forums, we use all this background to help us. And so it's absolutely valuable, but I'm not in favor of this specific motion at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. I will just share similar thoughts to what councillors already shared. I think we've already put a motion on the floor to bring BCH and VCH together with us, and I think that'll open up that conversation, and I imagine this might be a topic that becomes a part of that conversation, and so I'm not in favor of the motion as it stands, but definitely want to bring that up when we have that meeting with them. So I will call the question. All in favor of the motion on the floor? The Mayor and Councillor Palm, all opposed? Councillor Elliott, Doubt, Isaacson, Southcott, and Almeida. That motion is defeated. Councillor Palm.
Yes, through the chair. Second part of the motions that I'm bringing forward tonight suggests that we get another group together to help us in this endeavor. I think it's a wise move. The more eyes on the prize, the more people in the conversation that are directly affected, the better off this community is going to be down the road. And I'll just say it's It's disappointing that we turned down the first motion because without an informed decision or information to make an informed decision, we're working against the process. And I'm sure our new MLA would like to hear exactly what is transpiring in our town. So I'm going to make this motion and we'll see where this one goes. So whereas 126 people have been identified in the 2023 point-in-time homeless count as unhoused in Powell River and in need of housing. And whereas there are concerns in the community about how well the existing supportive housing project at 4910 Joyce Avenue is being managed. And whereas BC Housing proposes to develop / implement a second supportive housing project that will include complex care and shelter space at 5000 Joyce Avenue. And whereas currently there is no comprehensive plan in place as to how shelter, transitional housing, supportive housing, and complex care support services should be developed and managed in Powell River or qathet region over the next 5 years. Be it resolved that the City of Powell River create a community task force on housing and unhoused on the following basis. 1, developing a comprehensive plan for the city to address the needs of those in need of shelter, transitional, supportive housing, and complex care services in the city over the next 5 years. 2, work in conjunction with the city to implement strategies for the comprehensive plan. And 3, provide oversight of the current supportive housing project located at 4910 Joyce Avenue, so that current community concerns about management and community impacts can be addressed and the current BC housing model improved. 4th, further, that the task force be composed of 2 city councillors and up to 5 community representatives for the community at large, ratepayers and business community, and that initial appointments be for a 2-year term, which is basically the rest of our term, Council.
Second by the mayor. Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. I think this kind of work is a great idea. You know, parenthetically, I noticed that in the third whereas, the proposed housing at 5000 Joyce includes the 4 itemized services that it says there's no comprehensive plan for. So I suspect that between BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal, there may be more that maybe we're not aware of. Anyway, a concern I have is that this work is rather outside our municipal jurisdiction. We're at a time where our funding is short for a project of this size. However, I think the scope of it could be addressed in much the same way as I addressed with the last resolution, and that is by a group somewhat like what's suggested in point 4, called a task force. But I really think that if we were to have a representative group that worked together in this community, we could come up with something that very possibly could work by having a broad perspective on what we're actually looking at. And that is what I would support. So again, I appreciate all the work that's gone into this, but I think that it isn't quite there yet. And I would be glad to help contribute to getting it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Southcott. Councillor Dope.
Yeah. So, housing the unhoused is, it's a big problem. And having a task force, to me, doesn't go anywhere to solve the problem. Okay. What the city doesn't do is have even 50 cents in a budget to build housing. We don't have any money allocated out of the tax revenue that we collect to have a housing authority to actually build housing. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to create a development arm of the city that builds housing, then having a task force to decide how to build that housing, where to build it, what types and how much of it to build makes a lot of sense. But the fact is that anybody who's building housing, social housing in the city of Powell River right now is doing it as an arm of the provincial government, probably supported by the federal government as well. That's where the impetus to build the buildings comes from. And if you don't have the wherewithal to build the buildings and creating a plan for how they should be being built, doesn't make much sense. And this doesn't come for nothing. The money would have to come from somewhere to provide this task force that will meet and hopefully would do reasonable and effective planning over a period of 2 years. Doesn't come cheap. You have to fund the money to do it. And while I think it's a laudable goal, I don't think we actually have the mechanisms in place to build and provide that housing. The best we can do is provide lobbying and trying to affect the provincial and other government agencies to try to build it for us and try to do the things we can do, like passing simple land use bylaws to make it possible for other arms of government to do that and to try to do the best we can to influence how they do it and make sure they do it in a way that's best for our community. So I won't be supporting this motion.
Councillor Elliott.
Gosh, I wish we had planners that could help us make a plan like this. I think a task group with community folks and some councillors might be able to make recommendations for planning, but the actual planning would have to be done by a planner, and that takes money. And so without a budget, we're not really going to get there. So the city, I think, is hoping to get grants or some such thing to create better plans for poverty reduction, housing the homeless, and so forth. So my worry would be we would, if it's task force led by the city, we would require staff resourcing to make it happen. We're already resourcing a number of committees and are understaffed. Number 3 is completely outside of our jurisdiction. We can't make motions about stuff that is outside of our jurisdiction, so that would have to be removed from the motion before we could move it forward. The other parts are talking about plans to do things that the provincial government needs to fund. And so I think it's probably really good sense to get some folks together and create really good documents that we can go to the province and say, hey, this is what we need. We need you to fund this, this, and this so that we can house our homeless. And I would definitely participate in stuff like that. I don't see it being something that it's all work that the city would ask the province to fund. And so that's advocacy work. It's not planning. Planning is done by professional planners with a budget. And so we're having to delay our official community plan at this point because we are understaffed in that regard. So it's not something we could implement no matter how much we wanted to. We just don't have the bandwidth. So the motion doesn't quite describe appropriately what this task group would do as far as its mandate is outside of our jurisdiction. And so what we're talking about is getting folks together to create documents to use as advocacy tools. I support that. I want to participate in that. I don't want to require city funds and resources to do it though, but we do have other groups in the city working on similar issues that many of us attend and try to work together. So I'm not in favor of this motion. I am definitely in favor of getting together and trying to house the homeless and figure out better plans. And I will do that with the Westview ratepayers, all of the ratepayers, anybody else interested in housing the homeless, I will be there. We can't do it quite this way though. This motion won't get us there. Thanks.
Councillor Selcott.
Yeah, just quickly. I appreciate Councillor Paul bringing this forward. The ratepayers brought it 2 weeks ago, and the thought I had was very similar to our discussion tonight, but it's very good to have this discussion because maybe this helps us take steps forward. And any steps forward are good as far as I can see. This is a long road. It isn't what we have ever faced before in this community. And maybe it'll be, it is slow. There's no question about it. But thank you, Councillor Palm, because this is a step forward in my view. Thank you.
Mayor, did you have some comments? Did I miss your hand?
Oh.
Okay. Councillor Palm.
Yeah, I'll just wrap up before we call the vote. You know, I appreciate the comments that were made here tonight for a number of reasons, because resources are tight and we need some money to make good things happen. But I'll just provide one example that we're doing presently in this town that seems to be working without costing a lot of, it costs some staff time, but it doesn't cost a lot of money. And that is our Harbor Advisory Committee is meeting, and it has been meeting for 6 months now, once a month, meeting again next week. And through those discussions, which are very simple, not complex, changes are coming to our harbor and things are being dealt with that weren't dealt with previously. And it's made a big difference, and it will continue to make a positive impact on those harbors and solve some of the problems that we're facing down there. So this is, you know, you don't have to call it a task force. You can simply call it an advisory group for input from our citizens. And that's what's missing in this regard. So that's why I'm advocating, and I hear the ratepayers, and I'm sure they're here listening with both ears and all their ears and toes tonight. And maybe they will come back with another approach. But one of the things that's missing in the approach in this second motion is some type of funding aspect, which was in the first motion. Reach out to government, because this is a download. Let's not forget, this is a download. And there should be some money, hopefully, by this new government that was recently elected to provide that funding so we can adequately deal or start to deal with the many problems that exist.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. I definitely would agree with you on the benefits the Harbor Committee can have to our community. I think the one big difference is we control the harbor. And as Councillor Dowd and I think Elliott might have shared, housing is a majority provincial responsibility that we don't have as much of an influence on. So, and as we've said before, in the last few months, we've had a few staff move on to other positions. So our current staff, thankfully, are doing extra duty to fill in the gaps, and adding more to their plate right now would be hard. So I feel the conversation we're going to have with BC Housing, as Councillor Southcott alleviated too, I think these two topics are going to come up again. And I can see them being part of that conversation with BC Housing, and something further might come as a result of it. I'm not ready on the current motion as it stands right now. I will call the question. All in favor? Councillor Palm and the Mayor. All opposed? Councillor Elliott, Dowd, Isaacson, Southcott, and myself. And the motion is defeated. Moving to 13.1, which is a notice of motion, and for the community's benefit, the notices of motion is just an awareness to council that that topic will come up on a future agenda, which will be in December. So there's not going to be any discussion on that topic today, but we will discuss that at the next meeting in December. Which brings us to question period for those that have questions related to topics that were on the agenda today. If anyone's got any questions, they're welcome to come to the podium. I will mention for those listening online, the phone number is 1-833-782-7295, meeting ID 231-231-411#. Mr. Craig.
For me, I thank you for discussing the motions tonight. Obviously, we're disappointed. Things go in every direction when you get into these discussions, and of course, there's always reasons to push things down. But I guess the question I would have for you is, I'd like for each of you to tell me or tell us whether you have an evaluation of the current lift building that you have done or that you know of, and whether you could tell me and tell all of us how well they're doing. Are they doing excellent? Are they doing okay? Are they doing poor? Because if you don't know that, I don't know how you go into discussions going forward. So would each of you be willing to tell us what you think? Are they doing a great job? If they are, it's important the community know that council believes that the current model in the current place is working well. If that's what you believe, then I'd like you to tell us.
Mr. Plum.
Mr. Craig, that's a good question. And in terms of evaluation of our current facility, all I hear is discussion on the street. And I have not seen a report or anything in regard to what transpires in that building. Speak truthfully to that because your question is right on. I've never seen it.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Based on extensive conversations with residents and individuals at BC Housing and other organizations, I would give the housing a rating of 3 out of 10, where 10 would be optimum and 1 would be disastrous.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. So, Mr. Craig, I know that you realize that I also attend community action teams, and I was part of the Supportive Housing Advisory Committee, which has not met recently, and I've never quite caught up to why that's not happening. The bulk of the reporting that we had through this was through the Supportive Housing Advisory Committee. Hasn't happened in a while, and so most of the information from that avenue is a little bit outdated. But I do receive, and at our community action team, our provincial health officer attends all the time and reports out on empirical data affiliated with our community on a regular basis. And the data that I see indicates we are making headway and improvements in some areas, and we have new and emerging issues all the time. And every time we have new and emerging issues, new strategies are developed to address those new and emerging issues. And that is an ongoing process that happens throughout our crises with the opioid crises, which is what the community action team is focused on. So their focus is the community at large, not necessarily just the supportive housing unit, but we do get statistics affiliated with that too. And so the growing pains and things that are identified as issues come up with solutions as we go along. And those solutions, some of them are working quite well. Some of them are quite taxed and challenged at this point in time, and mainly because of not having enough access to locations to provide services. The locations where services are provided are under stress at this point in time. They are coming to an end and things like that. So without those locations, we're going to have even more challenges coming up, because the solutions we've been implementing and that have been working and maybe improving over time are now threatened, and we may see that fall down. So your question is very yes or no, when the answer is broader than that. I think our advisory committee definitely should be working and functioning, and it is not, because it stays on top of things. So I'm going to be advocating for improving that performance. I think we need more resources to solve problems in our community, and it is not one housing unit. It's community justice, it's health services, it's complex care services for the amount of caseload that everybody has in our community. And it's access to the types of professionals that do that kind of support is hindered due to our remoteness and those kinds of things. So it's not a simple answer. And it isn't about one housing unit. It's about all of those services that are supposed to be working together and are taxed across the board. And working to advocate for more of all of that.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. I got Councillor Southcott, then Councillor Doug.
Very difficult question to answer, and not to just say what Councillor Elliott just said, but part of the problem is that I think a broad spectrum of problems that are much more general in this community are conflated into one focus. Looking from the outside, very difficult to come up with metrics that are really relevant and useful. So there needs to be a process that involves people who are, if you will, more on the inside, and those of us who are on the outside, including all of us here and most of the people in the room here, one or two maybe not. But we need to do that work to be able to answer the question.
So no.
Yeah, so I don't have the education, the ability, and the knowledge to evaluate the effectiveness of the operation of the supportive housing that we have now. People that do that are the people who operate supportive housing in many other places, many other cities and towns across the province of BC, and that's BC Housing. They're the experts. They know what they expect. They know what their metrics are. They know how to test the metrics, and they know how to compare the one supportive housing operation to another. I'm willing to accept that they are the experts in that field, and I think the best way that we can influence that is to meet with them and collaborate with them on a regular basis and discuss the city's needs, BC Housing's needs, and the residents' needs, both within the supportive housing and in the neighborhood. So I'm not going to say they're doing a 3 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10, or because I'm not qualified to do that. I don't have the knowledge or the information to do it. I think BC Housing is a better place to do it. And I think they're the ones, and we need to set up a collaborative relationship with them, not an adversarial relationship, but a collaborative one, so we can work on finding the best way through.
Councillor Isaacson.
You, Chair. Also can't give you a short answer. One of those being, as is mentioned before, housing is not our jurisdiction, so I'm not interested in running over the operations of supportive housing with a fine-tooth comb, but I am open to hearing concerns and then bringing those to collaborative conversations with the program designers and the partners who build those projects. And I feel like our role as council in all of that is that advocacy piece. And so I look forward to hopefully having collaborative conversations with BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health. I think I challenge the premise of your question a little bit, because I think it is a bit easy to conflate supportive housing and its impacts to the state of the world today and its impacts. So supportive housing is not the same as COVID isolation, fentanyl, housing crisis, cost of living, housing becoming a commodity and an investment and no longer a basic human right. So I think conflating the two means that we mix up what supportive housing is responsible for and what they are able to control. And also the conflation of time. So the impacts and the struggles that people are having in our community with addiction and also the security of their property, we might compare 2019 to today and feel like things are worse in our community. And I absolutely understand why people would say that. However, the true comparison would be what would our community be like today if the supportive housing didn't exist. And I would argue that we're in a better place because it exists. Not that things are fine and shiny everywhere. And I know that the operators have been clear that at times they've had struggles recruiting staff or have had to make adjustments to how they operate. And they are open with that in conversation. But in that comparison on point of where we are today with that existing versus not, I feel like we are, I'm grateful that the supportive housing side exists in our community. So sorry, I don't have a simple answer for you. And part of it is it's outside of our jurisdiction, and I'm not interested in that oversight role. As Councillor Doubt said, I also don't have that expertise. No one on council in this room has experience implementing supportive housing in the age of fentanyl. It is just a wild ride right now, and everyone's trying to stay on top of things, and it's very hard. And so I stick to my lane. My lane is listening to community views, bringing those views and bringing my values into conversations with other government partners, and trying to keep the interests of our broader community and everyone in it in mind, whether those are neighbors of supportive housings, people who are living in there, or people who would love to live in there because they are currently out in the forest behind the complex. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify what Councillor Isaacson said about no knowledgeable experience. I made the point that I've been involved in 3 supportive housing projects that were dealing with individuals with drug addictions and other mental problems. So whether or not that was a result of fentanyl, amphetamines, LSD, etc., I don't think Councillor Isaacson is in a position to comment on that information unless she, in fact, is a fentanyl user or other drug users, or has a degree that would explain why she thinks she can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say, no, I'm like some of the other councillors have said, it's not my lane, not my expertise, so I haven't done an evaluation, but with the decisions that were in front of us today, I went with what I felt was going to move forward and bring the rest of the topics to those conversations to BC Housing and then take it from there.
I guess I'll just close and say, I mean, you're going to make a decision on a new building. Supposedly you need to have information to base your decision on in order to make sure that it's going to be a good decision. And I mean, I have seen the evaluations that BC Housing have done. They've sent a copy to us. I've actually talked to them about it. And they're not very detailed. But the question is, I think what all I'm saying is that I think the expectation probably of the citizens would be that council would try to understand as much as possible about how well things are going so that it can ensure that what's going to come forward is going to work. That's all we're asking. And I don't know how you do that. I mean, if you don't want to pay for or ask for an evaluation externally, then you're going to have to take the word of BC Housing. But someone's going to have to then prepare to ask the questions to BC Housing that are very detailed about how it's working. We got that from Lorraine, who presented a couple of weeks ago. She went and she had 15 different questions she had that she needed to know answers to because she couldn't get that information. So I'm just saying, I hope council will get it. I hope that you will take a bit of a deeper dive. And then based on that, that you'll be able to be really well prepared to make the decision as to what's being proposed, whether it's a good thing or not. That's all we're asking.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Palm.
Yes, Sir Chair. Mr. Craig, you made one important point there, and that is there was an evaluation done, which was internal and very superficial to my understanding. I think I did see that, but it didn't really tell us anything.
The evaluation I saw, which was the only one I got because I asked BC Housing for the evaluation, they sent it to us. What it was interviews with clients, with residents, and they were asking questions like, How do you feel? Do you feel like things are getting better? Do you feel safe in the building? How do you feel the community is treating you? Those were the kind of questions that had. And on the one that I talked to them about, which was about safety, they asked all of the residents, something like 2/3 of them answered, and 2/3 of them said they felt safe. Well, I thought, well, that's only 50%. So what I said to BC Housing, I said, if there's a finding of 50%, and I don't want to miscue this, but is that an excellent result? Is that a good result? Is that a poor result? How do we know what we're dealing with? Where are your metrics? What do they mean? And if you look at the report that was done, and I sent it to Rob of BC Housing, one of the things it says in section 4 is that they have no metrics for evaluation. There's no results-based evaluation metrics. And they're working on them now, is what they told me.
Mr. Craig,
I said, great.
I think council understands your points.
Okay, so I'll shut up. Sorry, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, we'll take the caller on the line. Evening caller, if you can introduce yourself, please, and ask your question.
Oh, hi. My name is Cheyenne Ashton Hopkins, and my question is for Councillor Palm regarding the motions around supportive housing. I hear Councillor Palm sharing the perspective of folks who are privileged enough to have a steady roof over their head. And I'm curious if you believe in hearing all sides, if you've personally spoken to the folks who need supportive housing, because I personally can't recall a time where I've heard you do this, and it just seems very important to me. Thanks.
Okay, so it was hard to hear the question. Could council help me out as to what the individual on the screen is asking?
He wants to know if you've talked to people who need supportive housing.
Who need it?
Yeah, who need supportive housing. That was her question.
No, I don't make it my practice to approach people that are on the street that need it. So that's my answer. Sorry.
All right. Thank you for your honesty. I guess, like I said, if you believe in hearing all sides, I think it would be a really, really important perspective to get. You don't have to approach somebody on, like, literally on the street, but honestly, I've done that and I felt incredibly safe. So, like, if I can do it, you can do it, I think. Thanks so much.
Thanks for calling in. Anyone else from the gallery? Come on forward, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name's Diane Beaton. I'm a community member. I don't have a question. I hope you don't mind me making a comment. I happen to be a cab driver at night, and I spend a lot of time with the folks on the street. Obviously, they jump in the car and go for little drives, and I get people up to the lift building as well. And I just want to say that when I talk to the people at the lift building, they say to me, bar none, they all say the same thing. They're just very, very thankful to have a roof over their head. And I ask them questions, and they, all of them, know they have a problem. They want to get better, most of them. And but they're just thankful to be off the street. So I wanted to share that because that's the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beaton. Any other questions from the gallery? Mr. Whitaker. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Nan Dunn. I'm a retired healthcare professional. I've lived in this town since 1981. My concern is the more people that we're bringing into town, a lot of the homeless we already have here, they're not Powell Riverites. They weren't initially registered in town before, for some reason or other, becoming homeless. Again, as a retired healthcare professional, we have residents in town, do not have a general practitioner, they don't have a doctor, they don't have a dentist. I have a friend who died in ICU. It's a 4-bedroom. She died in a room with another man and a screen separating them. We don't have the health care for other people coming into the town, but we can't give health care to the people that are already here. There's patients in hallways, on stretchers, being attended. And I think the healthcare, there should be services in place before more people are brought in. House the ones that we can house, make sure they're safe, the public are safe, but make sure they have the facilities when they become sick and unwell. As I said, there's a lot of residents living here, have no dentist, have no doctor, and that's why emergency rooms get busy too. That was my comment.
Okay, Ms. Dunn, Councillor Isaacson has a comment.
Yeah, just a clarification about people coming to our community and struggling. The homeless count from 2023 showed that of the people who are facing homelessness and precarious housing in the community, over half of them were born and raised here, and 85% have been here for 5 years or more. So a lot of people who've been here for a while. So I would fit into, I've mentioned at a previous council meeting, I would fit into the 5 years or more category. Thanks.
Councillor Elliott.
I just wanted to say I'm so sorry for your loss. Our hospital is really, really busy. Yeah, every time I've tried to help someone there, it always completely amazes me at how busy that place is. So I just wanted to say I'm really sorry for your loss. And there isn't people being shipped into Powell River. They're people that are already here. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, just have to say that Councillor Isaacson referred to 2023 percentages and numbers in terms of how many residents are from Powell River. 5 years ago, prior to COVID, we were told by health providers at that time, which were showing us how to use Narcan instruments at a meeting, that the people that they are treating were 100%. Every one of them was from Powell River. Now I'm hearing in 23 it's 50%, and I would challenge those figures today. This is probably not quite the same as it was in 23, because we know people sign up and they're placed in various communities. That's not a word of a lie.
Another count is planned for March of next year, so we'll know some more more stats then.
Mr. Whitaker.
Roger Whitaker, citizen and taxpayer, Powell River. Maybe on a lighter note than the tragedy existing on our streets. Item number 13.1. I seem to have missed the meeting where it was decided that the public became a burden to this council. Could you please tell me when that happened?
Item 13.1 is a matter that will be debated upon in a future council meeting. So
okay, it's on this agenda, and it says that they want to keep public engagement separate from conducting regular city council business to optimize energy and time of members of council. I read that, it's right page right out of Animal Farm. I'd just like to take 2 seconds, if I could, to remind this council this is a public chamber. You're elected to serve the public, and tax dollars pay the salary. The cylinder of Sirius 539 was one of the first times that the public stood up against the monarchy or the council or the whatever. The Magna Carta in 1215, Martin Luther in 1517, the English Bill of Rights in 1688, and the U.S. Declaration of Independence in 1776. And there's a whole bunch of other ones in between all there, not counting the French Revolution and the declarations from that mess. But Animal Farm states it pretty well. They were having all these meetings because, they were upset because the farmers were controlling everything. And when one animal spoke out against what the pigs wanted to do, the dogs barked at them and chased them out. And then it was off to the glue factory for that course.
Point of order, Chair, is there a question?
Oh, point of order. We haven't heard that yet tonight. I'm going to sit down. Thank you, Council.
Any other questions from the gallery? Anyone else online? Thank you. Oh, did you have a question, sir? Come on forward.
Hi, my name's George Wojcik. I live in Fall River, so I've been here for a few years. But I was just wondering if any of you people asked the local businesses around town what's going on? You know, like gas stations, food stores. Have any of them asked what's going on?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what they said? Yeah.
Elliot.
So I attend a lot of our chamber meetings and I do talk to a lot of business owners, and shoplifting is up astronomically in our community. A lot of the communities a lot of businesses are strapped because there's a lot of vandalism that happens to their businesses, and the program that was rolled out through the chamber to help business owners address some of those costs did not approve a single project in our community. So they're seeking more clarification about how one gets their project approved. So there doesn't seem to be much help for businesses who are addressing a lot of the justice issues that are happening. And so that's high on my list and has been for a while, the addressing of justice gaps going on. It seems to be something happening across the province. We've asked Minister Farnworth when he was the minister. We've addressed it at every single UBC. We did have a situation table funded here in Powell River, which was going to address some things. And I understand that's underway. And we continue to ask for better means for addressing our community justice issues. And so, yes, the answer is yes. I talk to them all the time. And did I miss something?
Oh, no, it's good. Let me just, a while ago, I just did some walking around. So I went to the, let's see, I went to Freshco and I said, why is there a security guard here? And I stopped, talked to Steve, and he said, well, they come in here with a shopping cart and then they go right out. So we have a security guard there to do that, right? Okay, so then one day I decide to go to the Chevron where I get gas, and then RCMP officer comes in there. I said, you go ahead. So she talks to the fella and where's the video? And the fellow says, I don't know what the video is. So I said, what happened? He said, well, somebody came in here the other night and they had a knife at one of our employees. Okay, well, all right. So then I go to Walmart with my wife and I said, Laura, you go inside and I'll sit in the truck. So all of a sudden I look in the mirror and there's somebody running like crazy with something behind my truck, and a person with a vest is running after him. And then the lady from Walmart, who I know, she says, let him go, get him the next time. Okay, so that's another situation. Like, I just want to say, I'm for housing. I have a bed, and when I'm sleeping in my bed, I'm thankful to God that I have a place to sleep, even though I have to pay taxes, but that's okay, So then I talked to my friend in Walmart, and he says, yeah, what do you do, George? He says, well, we're told by the manager, if anybody comes in here and steals anything, just let them go because we don't want confrontation. See, Cindy, that goes to your idea about the law, right? Anyway, so every store I go to, we built a house in Westview, and I talked to them at Rona. He says, George, we have to follow these people around. You know, they try to steal stuff. Every store I go to, and then my wife was watering the grass one day, the weeds mostly. And so there's somebody riding around on a kid's bike, you know, so it's and a fella, and he goes into the neighbor's driveway and she says, what are you doing? She said, well, I'm looking for blueberries. Well, there's no blueberries there, you know. Anyway, so there's a lot of people being affected, you know, a lot of people, and this is just half of it. When I joined the Westview Ratepayers Association, I figured out how things work, and you know, I was in the dark. You know, I think the whole world is concerned with my new snowmobile, my mutual funds, while everything else goes to crap. Anyway, yeah, so there's my and I like housing. Everybody needs to be housed. My wife and I have gone to the lift building. We've given them things, you know, and they're so happy to receive the food, especially at Christmas time, you know. Anyway, so anyways, thanks for all your work. And oh yeah, one other thing, I decided to go get rid of my glass by Rona there, and so that's closed, you know, the recycling. So I went to the new recycling place. That's just beautiful. The road is paved really nice. There's lots of staff there helpful to show me where the glass was, you know, and then a nice lady weighing my garbage. That's just a total beautiful job. Just to give you some encouragement. I just love it there, you know. Yeah, they're all happy. Lots of signs, stop signs. You can make a U-turn here. Anyway, well, thanks a lot. Eh?
We'll make sure the regional directors are aware of that so that they can pass it on to the regional district at their next meeting. Thank you, George. Any other questions from the gallery? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Isaacson.
I move that council move into a closed meeting to discuss matters covered by the community charter under sections 90 part 1. Just checking with staff, these are the correct clauses. Okay. I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal service that are at their preliminary stages, and that, in the view of the council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public.
Second by Councillor Southcott. All in favor? Unanimous. Motion to reconvene. Or sorry. No, that's wrong.
We're going to reconvene. We're going into a
closed meeting. Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe.